There are moments in life when everything seems to collapse at once. Moments when your strength runs out, your hope wears thin, and your faith feels like a faint whisper instead of a roar. Moments when you look around and see nothing left, no answers, no pathways, no solutions, no clarity. You reach for something solid, but everything slips through your hands. You pray, but heaven feels silent. You try to stand, but the ground trembles. You wait for a breakthrough, but the only thing that breaks is your heart. And in those moments, a quiet, eternal truth echoes through every dark valley. When you're down to nothing, God is up to something. Not maybe, not possibly, not hopefully, God is up to something. Right now, even here, even in this, because God does his best work in places where your strength ends. He begins where you break. He rises where you fall. He builds where you collapse. He resurrects where you die to self. You may see nothing, but heaven is not inactive. Heaven is intentional. Where you see an end, God sees a Begianian judge, reality by what eyes can see. But God sees differently. Where you see a dead end, he sees a doorway. Where you see broken pieces, he sees construction material. Where you see chaos, he sees opportunity. Where you see loss, he sees preparation. God never calls something over just because your resources ran out. In fact, God often waits until your resources run out so he can reveal himself as your only source. You see nothing because he's clearing the stage. You see emptiness because he's making room. You see endings because he's preparing beginnings. When you're down to nothing, God isn't late, he's laying a foundation you don't yet understand. The silence of God doesn't mean the absence of God. One of the hardest truths in spiritual life is this: God can be closest when he feels the farthest. Not because he hides, but because he is working on levels deeper than your emotions can detect. The seed in the soil feels buried, forgotten, suffocated beneath darkness, yet it is in that darkness that the seed begins its true transformation. God's silence is not abandonment. God's silence is preparation. God's silence is formation. When he is quiet on the surface, he is busy beneath it. Your feelings may scream nothing is happening, but faith whispers something is shifting where you cannot see. God does his greatest work in empty places. Look at scripture, and you will see a divine pattern. Empty places birth miracles. The widow's empty jars became vessels of supernatural oil. The disciples' empty nets became a testimony of abundance. The empty wilderness became the place where God fed multitudes. The empty tomb became the foundation of salvation. God waits for emptiness because emptiness proves readiness. You think your life is falling apart, but God sees your hands finally open. You think everything has been taken, but God sees space for blessing. You think the loss is the end, but God sees a stage for resurrection. He cannot fill what is already full. He cannot pour into what is already occupied. He cannot rebuild what is still clinging to old. Structures. Emptiness is not your enemy, it's your invitation. When God strips everything away, he's really saving. Why you sometimes God removes what you don't want to. Loseto build what you cannot yet imagine. You prayed for strength, he removed your crutches. You prayed for growth, he pulled you out of comfort. You prayed for direction, he closed all the wrong doors. You prayed for clarity, he disrupted your certainty. You prayed for a breakthrough, he broke what was holding you back. What feels like destruction may actually be divine surgery. God is not trying to hurt you. He is trying to heal what you cannot see. He is not trying to diminish you. He is trying to prune you so you can bear fruit beyond your imagination. Every loss is either protection or preparation, and every stripping is for strengthening. When you can't fix it, God begins to rewrite it. Come to the end of yourself, so He can begin. The end of your ideas, the end of your strategies, the end of your strength, the end of your illusions of control. God does not need your perfection. He needs your surrender. When you finally release your grip, He finally takes the pen. Your story is not finished because your strength ended. Your story continues because His strength took over. God works when you think He's doing unnoticing. Consider this divine irony. The most powerful moments of God's intervention are the moments you misinterpret as neglect. When Joseph was sold into slavery, God was positioning him for a palace. When Ruth was gleaning leftovers in a field, God was aligning her with destiny. When David was hiding in caves, God was shaping a king. When the disciples saw Jesus in a tomb, God was preparing resurrection. God's movements don't always look miraculous in the beginning. Sometimes they look like loss. Sometimes they look like silence. Sometimes they look like defeat. Sometimes they look like nothing. But the nothing is the soil of something. And the something is what changes everything. God saves His strongest work for your weakest moments. You were never meant to carry your life alone. You were never meant to solve everything alone. You were never meant to endure storms alone. Your weakness is not your disqualification. It is your access point. When you reach your limit, you reach the beginning of God's limitless power. When your strength ends, His strength begins. When your plans collapse, His design unfolds. When your faith trembles, His faithfulness stands unshaken. Your weakest moment is where His greatest miracle prepares to enter. An empty life is a canvas for God's greatest art. To think of a painter before he begins the masterpiece. The canvas must be blank. Your life feels blank, right now, stripped, reduced, simplified, emptied. But what if God didn't erase your life? What if He is preparing the canvas? Every broken dream is a brushstroke of future beauty. Every unanswered prayer is space for divine color. Every delay is layering depth. Every disappointment is an outline of redemption. You see emptiness. God sees potential. You see ruins. God sees a foundation. You see a blank canvas. God sees a masterpiece in progress. When God removes, He intends to replace with bittr. Sometimes God subtracts so He can multiply. Sometimes He shuts down so He can redirect. Sometimes He empties so He can overflow. You're not losing. You're clearing ground for a better construction. God will not take what you need. He only takes what would destroy what He is building. He is removing what blocks your purpose. He is stripping what cages your spirit. He is replacing what was never meant to stay. This season is not about loss, it's about alignment. When you're down to nothing, you're exactly where God can rebuild. Why you God does not build on pride. He builds on humility. He does not build on the illusion of strength. He builds on authentic surrender. He does not build on noise. He builds in the quiet. He does not build on clutter. He builds on clean ground. When you have nothing left to lean on, He becomes your foundation. When you have nothing left to claim, He becomes your identity. When you have nothing left to hold, He becomes your anchor, rock. Bottom is not the end rock. Bottom is where you discover the rock of ages. God is preparing a door you haven't seen. Why each humans panic when one door closes, heaven doesn't. Because heaven knows that closed doors are not dead ends. They are divine redirections. You think opportunity ended, God knows opportunity is being rebuilt. You think you're stuck. God knows you're being positioned. You think you missed your chance. God knows the real chance is coming. God is not scrambling to find another door. He is crafting a better one. Your nothing left is God's. Now I can begin. God doesn't despise your brokenness. He uses it. He doesn't run from your emptiness. He fills it. He doesn't reject your vulnerability. He invites it. It is not strength that attracts God. It is surrender. It is not perfection that moves. It is honesty. It is not performance that impresses Him. It is dependence. God begins where self-sufficiency ends. Heaven is never still. Even when earth is salient, while you see nothing happening, heaven is moving pieces like a divine chessboard. He is shifting hearts, aligning people, creating connections, opening opportunities, protecting you from unseen dangers, reshaping what was deformed, preparing what is still hidden. Just because you don't feel movement does not mean movement isn't happening. He is up to something so vast, so intricate, so beautifully orchestrated. It will only make sense in hindsight. You are living a chapter that will one day become your testimony. God's best work is often invisible until I tease. Ewin Dea, Eniavel will come a day. 1. Everything suddenly becomes clear. Not slowly, not gradually, suddenly. The pieces will align. The confusion will lift. The pain will make sense. The timing will be perfect. The path will appear. The breakthrough will manifest. And you will say, now I see what God was doing. Now I understand why it didn't work before. Now I get why the delay was necessary. Now I know why the door closed. Now I see the miracle hidden in the struggle. The invisible becomes undeniable. God reveals what He was up to. God is not done. He is just getting started. You've reached the end of yourself. But that's not the end of the story. That's the end of the chapter. And God is writing the next one. He is not finished with your life. He is not finished with your purpose. He is not finished with your healing. He is not finished with your breakthrough. He is not finished with your calling. When you're down to nothing, God is not retreating. He is preparing a comeback, a better one, a bigger one, a deeper one, a divine one. Your story is not ending in emptiness. Your story is being rewritten by the one who specializes in resurrection. God does His best work in your worst moments. So here is the truth you must hold on to when you're down to nothing. God is up to something. Not tomorrow, not later, not eventually. Right now, right here, in this very season, He is closest in the valley. He is working in the silence. He is rebuilding in the ruins. He is preparing something you cannot yet imagine. Your nothing is not your end. Your nothing is God's beginning. And soon you will look back at this season with gratitude, not grief. With clarity, not confusion. With awe, not fear. And you will say, God was there all along. When I was down to nothing, He was up to something greater than I ever dreamed.